Welcome back, you guys, to the Life of Lexi podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about dating, my personal experiences with dating, how it's gone, how it hasn't gone, my personal successes, my personal fails, my experience with something called negging and what that is. I didn't even know what that was until a few years ago. I didn't know, what that word meant, and how to sort of handle dating in today's world, because I feel like I could have used some help. So hopefully this episode is of some help to you. Honestly, I feel like dating truly has been one of the most exhausting experiences of my entire life, of all of my 20s. First of all, when I went to Arizona State University, I was 18. Obviously, graduated at 21, 22. So essentially, dating in college, let's just call it a wash, okay? Because was anybody really dating at Arizona State? Maybe here and there were a few people that were in relationships. I think one of my good girlfriends, she's like the only one who stayed in her relationship from college, and then that was it. I feel like it was really, kind of a free-for-all in college. So we're not counting college. We're talking about dating really in your mid to later 20s and what my experience has been like. And if I'm being completely and totally honest, sometimes I almost feel like dating today is like a psychological experiment, and I feel like God or whoever's up there is like testing me, and it's sort of like the competition of who can handle the most bullshit from the most amount of people. So yeah, it's just been an exhausting time, if that makes sense. To start off, I really do want you guys to know this. I sincerely have tried. I have tried my hardest. It's not for a lack of trying. It's not for being like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there, or I feel like I'm truly struggling with confidence. I don't think that's my issue. I really have tried. I've dated, men my age. I've dated men a little bit older than me, 5 years older than me. I've dated men that there's sort of an age gap where they're in their late 30s or early 40s. So, and it's different people of all different backgrounds, all different careers, all different levels of education, and they're all smart, successful people. But the issue that I'm really finding is it's just, I feel like nobody wants to commit today. I feel like everybody wants to date and everybody wants to have fun and everybody wants numerous options, but nobody really wants to commit to anybody. So it's sort of like, what do you do with that? I have really tried. I've tried the apps like for a little bit, like a very little bit of time. That gets a little scary. I feel like girls get bombarded with messages, so that I've never really liked it. If I'm on apps for a few days, I like turn it off. I've tried, dating people in other states, sort of a long distance type of relationship where I'm traveling back and forth. I've dealt with the guy that's like, let's see where this goes. Let's just play it by ear. And if we feel like we're a match or we're a connection, like we'll just, let's see where it goes. I've dated the guy that has traveled a lot for work or for personal reasons, and that hasn't worked out either. I do want this to be known. Like, I really do. I genuinely want a connection. I want partnership with somebody that I feel like, we share similar values, we share a similar connection, we have similar goals, or maybe not exactly similar goals, but we're both motivated to make our lives happen, right? And I just feel like I haven't met somebody that has a lot of the same qualities that I do. And sometimes I just feel like, especially in today's world, I feel like people don't really want to get to know me as a human being, as a person, for my character, for who I am. I think a lot of dating today, obviously it is centered around looks. I understand that. I get that. We all want to be attracted to our partner. I was at dinner with one of my good friends, Ben, last night, and he's like, you do know the reason people approach you is because you're pretty, right? He's like, and you must know that. He's like, and the reason people approach me is because I have a good personality, which he's hilarious. He's funny, but he's a realist. And I was like, no, I get that. I understand. But eventually there's a point in your life where, even if that is what causes somebody, like physical attraction is what causes somebody to approach you, you hope it turns into something more, right? You hope it turns into a commitment, a relationship, a long-term dating partner. And I feel like I have genuinely wanted connection. I just feel like these people didn't really want me. I feel like they wanted access to me, but I feel like they didn't want me as a human being, if that makes sense. I think they liked the idea of me better than who I actually was, if that makes sense. And believe me, I do understand. I get it. Everybody wants to be with a partner that they're physically attracted to on a sliding scale. Guys want to fuck pretty girls. I get it. I understand that. But it's like there's a certain point where that really does get old. And it's like, are you gonna do that forever? Is that gonna be the only thing you're looking for? Is like physical connection with somebody? I don't know. At least for me, it has to be more than that. And I feel like it's really hard to find somebody who wants to get to know you as a human being and as a person. This is truly what I thought dating was going to look like in my mid to late 20s. I thought guys were going to be taking me out on dates and to dinner, and we were doing like shared activities, maybe Topgolf, maybe going swimming in the ocean, doing a beach day, guys sincerely making the effort to get to know me and asking me, intelligent questions about my upbringing, about my childhood, about my future, things that I want to accomplish, goals that I have. And at some point, yes, I did think that I would meet somebody that mutually agreed with me that we wanted to be together, whether that was forever or not even talking about marriage, just talking about committing to one another in a relationship. Now, let's fast forward to this is what dating actually looks like today. I would say it's like you are going on dates like it's a numbers game, right? You're throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're seeing what sticks. You're going on date after date after date, making little to no progress. And even if you like the person, sometimes they don't live in the state, or sometimes they live out of the country, or it's like they're not in a place where they want to commit. And even though they like you, and they do, it's not enough for you to be the one that they pick. And so it's this very like frustrating process of going out on dates, making very little progress, not being chosen, and starting from the beginning again, over and over and over. So it's like, what do you do with that? Dating today also looks like this. There are people that take you on dates and they expect you to fuck them immediately. It's like because they bought you dinner, they feel like you owe them sex, which is crazy. And it's also guys dating a lot of girls all at once, girls dating a lot of guys all at once. People are dating numerous people at once. And so there's like this roster of people that you're competing with for attention, which that's really intense. And then also this has been a common theme in my dating life. It's been men sincerely going out of their way to make an introduction with me and meet me. Like I'm not approaching these guys. They are the ones approaching me. They get my number. They take me on numerous dates. We talk for months. And then all of a sudden, poof, gone. They disappear. Like, where'd you go? Where are you? I don't know. And that truly has been my experience a lot of the time. And it's not just like poof, gone for a little while. It can be gone for weeks, months, even years. Somebody has, come back around again. I don't know if it's retrograde. I don't know what it is, but not for nothing. It's people disappearing and coming back and being like, let's give it another go. And you're like, for what? I wanted to give an explanation on my expectations versus reality and what's actually going on out there. And also too, I wanted to talk about something that I didn't even know existed until a few years ago, and it's called negging. And just so everyone's aware, because I didn't know what it meant, negging is basically giving somebody a slight insult or a backhanded compliment in a way that makes somebody feel insecure. And then they will ask you to go on a date or ask you for your number after that. So it's this really weird process of like tricking somebody to get something from them. Negging can be described as like a subtle insult disguised as flirting in order to make somebody feel insecure. And this is something I really experienced when I was in my mid-20s in Scottsdale and I was living sort of close to Paradise Valley. I do think there is a book that describes what negging is, and it's this book where guys learn how to neg women, and I think it's called The Game, if I'm not correct. I don't know if everybody in Scottsdale was reading this book, but the amount of times that I was negged in public, in the grocery store, minding my own business, at work, not talking to anybody, people coming up to me and literally like perfect strangers coming up to me, literally insulting me and then asking me on a date afterwards. I was beside myself, truly beside myself. I have heard personally, this is one of my favorites. Wow, you really would be pretty if you smiled more. Or tough night last night. You're not looking so good. You sort of look like shit. It was like some sort of line or version of that. Wow, you look really tired today. Are you feeling well? You know what I mean? It was always some sort of insult or criticism at the beginning of a sentence. And then they would go into, oh, well, maybe we should get drinks later. Maybe we should get dinner later. Initially, this is how I used to handle negging in the past. I would try to be super polite. I would try to give the politically correct answer and be like, oh, no, thank you. You know what I mean? I'm not interested. It's all okay. But honestly, that didn't work. It didn't get those people to go away either. They would just keep trying and keep insulting me and doing the same thing till eventually I told them to fuck off. So now this is sort of where I'm at with everything. If a guy is going to come up to me, a complete and total stranger, and he is going to insult me and then proceed to ask me on a date, I am not dealing with it anymore. The time for me to be politically correct or give the polite answer, I'm telling you right now, it's fucking over. If you're gonna walk up to me and be a freak, honey, tit for tat. I'm gonna be a freak right back. So whatever you say to me, I'm gonna say to you. Okay, let me paint this picture for you. This was years ago. I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was at a really nice grocery store called AJ's, and I was minding my own business. I actually didn't work the night before. I remember this. So I was well rested. I got sleep. I woke up. I went to the gym. I was in athleisure, but I looked cute though, right? You know what I mean? I did a tinted moisturizer, some gloss, maybe curled my lashes, a little mascara. I did look presentable, right? It wasn't like I looked disheveled or I looked bad. So minding my business in the grocery store, I'm waiting in line. This guy comes up to me and he goes, ooh, tough night last night, huh? I go, excuse me? He goes, you look like you had a rough night. I go, actually, no, I didn't. What's up? He goes, you kind of look like shit. I go, excuse me? I go, who the fuck are you? And he looks at me and he realizes he said it to the wrong person. And he was like, oh, well, regardless of that, would you maybe want to get drinks with me later? First of all, I was like, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? I'm like, am I fucking hallucinate? Or did this guy just completely and totally insult me and then ask me on a date? I didn't know what was happening. I look at him, I go, did I just have a fucking stroke? In what world do you think the conversation that we just had equals us at a dinner having great conversation and having fun? That's literally what I said to him, and he stared at me in disbelief and was like, whoa, I guess it didn't work. And this is my new thing, and it really does take me a lot to get to this point. I always love talking to people I see in public that, look like they've had a tough day. I'm like, oh, how are you today? I'll always be kind to people I see, especially in the grocery store or in public. But if you are gonna come up to me and say wild shit, you can expect a wild fucking answer back. And it wasn't until I was describing this experience to one of my male friends at the time, and he was like, you do know that that's a con artist technique that men use on women to make them feel insecure, right? I was like, what? No. What is it called? And he was like, it's called negging. I was like, oh, okay. And I looked it up, and it's a real thing. And there's a book based about these tactics that men can do to make people feel insecure, to help them get what they want. So if somebody is trying to get something from you and they feel like they have to do that by insulting you, if I were you, I would run in the other direction so fast, because that shows you that that person is inherently insecure. And rather than just coming up to you and approaching you and, I don't know, maybe giving you a decent compliment and saying, hey, I noticed you were standing over there. I think you're beautiful. I saw you from across the bar. I'd love to buy you a drink, see where the conversation goes, and maybe get your number. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta say. But instead of doing that, they choose the negative approach to make you feel insecure. If somebody's doing that to you, that shows you that they have some deep-rooted insecurities within themselves, and that will progressively get worse as you date that person. I don't think, confusing somebody is attraction. I don't think anxiety should be linked to attraction. And I feel like this technique tries to confuse women into like, what the fuck just happened? I guess he's asking me for my number. Like, okay, I think, and I just think it's a really, I don't know. I think it's like a fucking loser way to try to get something from somebody. And I think this is a really important thing to say. What I've noticed too, oftentimes it's not even about me as a person. I think sometimes people truly are just seeking validation in some capacity. Like, I think people more times than not, they just want access to you. It's not that they want you specifically, but they want access to you, and they want access to upsetting you and seeing your reaction. So if you don't give people that, normally they'll go away. But if they don't, yeah, I think it's fine to stick up for yourself. But I didn't realize until my later 20s that this is something as a woman you don't just have to sit there and tolerate and be super polite about. Because if someone is coming at you with something, you do have a right to defend yourself. Something that finally made me like stop accepting this behavior, I think you just get to a point in your life where you experience so much bullshit in a certain area. Like, I experienced so many, people coming up to me and doing this. Then you know what it is. You're like, okay, I'm not interested in this. But it took several times of that, right? I think oftentimes when you recognize something for what it is, instead of ignoring it and ignoring the red flag and just going for it because somebody is giving you validation or seeking interest in you, I would take the time, I would examine it more closely and be like, did I like the way he approached me and made me feel? And if the answer to that is no, or something's off with that, I wouldn't proceed with it. And going forward now, I think once I've experienced those lessons, that's something that I don't allow anymore. And oftentimes now I'll find when men approach me, it is a more positive experience. I don't think I've experienced that since I've been in Miami, but definitely a lot in Scottsdale. And honestly, for me, this has been, I think, one of the more disappointing parts of dating. Sometimes I just feel like people don't really want to get to know me for who I am as a person. And that hurts because I am a deep person. I like having deep conversations. I have really wonderful girlfriends. I have really wonderful chosen family. But of course, I think naturally people want to grow their life with somebody in a relationship. Sometimes I just feel like it's not meant to happen for me, even though I think deep down that it is. It's just that I haven't had such a positive experience with dating throughout the entirety of my adult life. So I feel like when you have negative experience after negative experience, sometimes I don't necessarily know how to break that cycle and come out on the other side of that. And I really do give people like a fair shot to show me who they are and to get to know me. I just find that it's always the same. It's people showing up, taking me on dates, talking for a few months, disappearing, and then doing it over again. So I just get really discouraged, and it's like, I don't know like what else I can do at this point to try to make it different. And maybe that's something I need to reflect on a little bit more and work on, or seek the advice of a therapist on. I don't know. At this point, I feel like I really have given it my best go. And it's sort of one of those things where I think the tighter you cling to something, or the more you feel like you need something, the less it naturally comes to you. So I'm trying to practice the law of detachment and just allowing things to happen as they come. So this is me right here, right now, saying on camera, I surrender. Okay, put me where I'm supposed to be happy. Give me a partner that is going to make me happy, makes me feel safe, cared for, provided for, etc. That's what I want. I'm manifesting that, but do I need it right now? No. So I'm just like surrendering and leaving it up to God. And honestly, after being so disappointed time and time and time again, you really do start to wonder. You're like, okay, is this ever going to be different? Is there ever going to be somebody that comes into my life and doesn't treat me that way? It makes me feel not only not appreciated, and not only like people don't see and hear me and value me as a person, but it really does. It makes me feel like an object. It makes me feel like I'm replaceable. People don't give a fuck about me. Like, they'll toss me to the side if I'm not giving them what they want. And like, they don't really care about me or what happens to me. And at a certain point, you're just like, I don't know, what more can I do, I guess? I think that is important to admit that. even though I'm a confident person and I have worked on myself in life coaching and therapy, and I always try to get feedback from other people, I think it's important to admit that you do have insecurities. I think everyone does, right? I would say an insecurity of mine is that like dangling of the carrot of somebody sort of implying that they want more, but they just never want more with me. And I think as a kid too, I haven't always really felt like chosen in my own life. And so I get really insecure when that happens in dating, and it happens over and over and over again. I'm not necessarily sure how to counteract that or to like to break that cycle. I do feel like I choose myself. I do feel like I show up for myself. I do feel like I love myself. Obviously, we can all work on those things, but it's like, at a certain point, I've just sort of given up altogether, to be honest. I haven't really dated really anyone in years because I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to try? Where else am I supposed to go? Granted, I haven't really dated in the best cities. I was at Arizona State, in Scottsdale, Arizona, flying back and forth between LA. That's another major city. And now I'm in Miami. Those are really hard places to date, but even still, it's like, what am I gonna do? Am I traveling to the middle of the United States to, go out on dates? Like, am I dating in Kansas? Or like Missouri, or you know what I mean? Probably not. So it's sort of hard. Like, how do you gauge it? How do you find eligible people? What I'm personally gonna start doing with dating is I'm gonna start doing like shared activities. So for me, I'm gonna start picking up golf because one, I really do like it. My grandfather taught me how to golf at like the driving range. I'm gonna get a cute outfit. I'm gonna go to the driving range and I'm gonna start golfing, maybe taking private golf lessons. And I just feel like hot guys golf. Affluent people, wealthy, successful people like to golf. So I'm gonna start positioning myself and putting myself in places that I wanna be and to do like a shared activity and to socialize and meet new people. And I feel like maybe that will help and make a little bit of a difference. I'm gonna try that and I'll get back to you guys. This is something I feel like is a really valuable line. Sometimes throughout my life, I have felt like I help guys get to the person that they're supposed to be with, but I'm not the person they're supposed to be with. So it's like I am an experience on the journey, but I myself am never the final like destination that they end up at. It is disappointing and upsetting. And again, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you keep going, but it does create insecurities. And it's like, okay, why am I not enough for someone? Okay, I just want to share 2 funny dating stories just so I feel like there's some camaraderie within, the girls that are listening to this podcast. I feel like it's important to share this with people because everyone experiences rejection. Everybody experiences moments where they're disappointed or let down. And I just want to be honest about my real life experiences. So there was a guy I met years ago. I think it was in Nashville, Tennessee. He was, very successful, very wealthy, very established, owned his own company, had properties in, let's say, Texas, New York, Utah, California, like all over the United States. And he flew everywhere. He wasn't just traveling within the United States. He was going to Europe or he was going to Spain. He was flying all over the place because he had the means to do so, right? And that was his life. And he was in his early 40s at the time. He was adamant on getting my number, getting to know me, all of these things. And, taking me out on dates and da-da-da-da-da. And eventually it got to the point where I went to see him because he wanted me to see him. We did that, and then we communicated for more months. And then, the connection starts to fizzle because you're not really seeing each other. And there wasn't really a whole lot of effort made on his side. So you know what? I let it go. But it was clear that he thought it was okay to come in and out of my life as he saw fit, because obviously when you get to, I would say, your later 30s, early 40s, and nobody is sort of telling this guy, and it was clear that no one was telling this guy, like, you can't always act that way. The CEO of his own company, very much so the guy in charge, not in an overly aggressive way, but in a way where you could tell he felt like he could do whatever he wanted because he's always done whatever he wanted and had the means to do that. You know, there's some space and some time. I moved to Miami. I'm pretty sure it was right when I moved into Miami at the Gale. My friend Liz from Scottsdale was visiting me. He calls me up. He goes, "Hey, how are you? How's the move to Miami? How have you been? What's going on? I want to hear all the details." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yep, nice." And, you know, I tell him a few things and I go, "You know, I really thought you saw me. I really thought you saw me for who I was. And I thought you wanted to get to know me for who I was as a person. And, you know, it was really disappointing to find out that yet again, you were just another example of someone that I thought was going to show up for me and consistently be there for me. And you weren't, and you let me down. And you don't see anything wrong with the fact that you can come in and out of my life. And not only in and out of my life, but make no effort to include me or incorporate me into your life." It was really interesting because I didn't yell, I didn't raise my voice, I wasn't super angry, I said things really matter of fact. I did almost get actually a little teary-eyed when I was like, "I thought you saw me," because that's something that I think I've struggled with throughout my entire life as a kid too. And it shows up in other areas of your life, right? So sometimes that does show up in dating for me. We ended that conversation. It's been almost 2 years now. He comes back around recently just to do the same thing. And, you know, I said, "I wish you well. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I deserve somebody that wants to consistently show up for me and be in my life and be that source of support that I'm looking for and that I need." And so that was a really valuable lesson. And I guess sometimes you have to learn it twice or 3 times or however many times it takes. But that was an example of somebody that I thought, maybe this could be the guy. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. And I think it's interesting that I needed to learn that lesson twice because I thought I was done doing that, like cycling on people. I try not to do that, like going back over something again twice. But again, I do like to believe people can change. I like to believe people can make progress. And sometimes, not saying that you shouldn't give somebody a second chance, but you can hurt yourself by doing that if you're giving the wrong person a second chance. And that's what I learned from that. And then another, I would say, dating fail that was funny was a date that I went on with a guy when I just moved into my hotel in Miami that I was staying at temporarily. I met him in the lobby or at dinner in the hotel, and he asked me to dinner. I was like, sure, why not? I don't really know him, but he seemed nice at dinner. He was very well dressed. It's like, how bad could this be? Like, famous last words, never again. We go out to dinner. It was at Contessa, really beautiful dinner. I have maybe 2 drinks. He had like 4 old fashions, and you could tell he just really disagreed with a lot of my opinions, which is totally fine. But he didn't like that I was even stating my opinions in the first place. I was like, okay, that's a red flag. Like, probably not going to see this guy again. And then he asked me if I had extensions or if my hair was real. And I was like, that's weird. I don't normally get that. I was like, no, my hair is real. And I like put my fingers, I run my fingers through my hair. I was like, oh no, see, like it's my hair. And he puts his fingers in my hair and he yanks my head back. And I was like, get the fuck off me. I was so upset because I'm like, what a violation of space, especially on the first date. And so we go back to the hotel that we both live in. And, he's like, oh, aren't you going to get in the elevator with me? I'm like, are you crazy? You think I want you knowing what floor I live on, you fucking freak? No. That was the last time I saw him. And the next day he texted me and I didn't answer. And he goes, bye. I was like, okay, bye. I wanted to share that because one, I do think that's a funny story. And just when you think, oh, how bad could it be? Like, if that's what you're thinking, maybe don't do it. I think I've gone into things a lot of times in my life being like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. And that's literally what I say before it happens. And it is that bad. I don't think in some circumstances, like, don't always do things just for the sake of doing things. I think sometimes if you don't think it's going to be the right person, just maybe give them a chance. But if you're sensing that they're a little weird, like, get out of there. This is how I am approaching dating now. And I feel like this is something that's worthy of having a conversation of. My friend Gabe and I just talked about it. I think how you break a cycle is by the things that you are asking for and that you are looking for. You need to be yourself. And I think I've heard that a lot of times in my life. But I think sometimes as people, we need to see things like physically in somebody else. Until I give myself the things that I need, like until I show up for myself and make myself feel safe and show myself that I am enough and I am worthy of love and happiness and joy and good things coming to me in my life, that is not what I'm going to receive from other people. And Gabe is right. I'm quoting him. You attract not the things necessarily that you want, but the things that you are currently. So if what is showing up in my life is people that are disappearing, people that are not following through, people that think they can come and go as they please, there's probably a part of myself that is doing those things to myself, if that makes sense. Like maybe I'm not showing up for myself in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm not being consistent for myself in a lot of ways. And I need to start acting every day in the ways that I think my partner will act towards me. So if I think he'll buy me flowers, I should buy me flowers. If I think he's gonna plan the dates for us at a beautiful waterfront, restaurant, I should do that for myself as a solo date and go and enjoy it. And I think the more that I start putting myself in the circumstances that I do want, I will start feeling the energy and the vibration and the frequency. And people can say that's fucking woo-woo all they want, but the more that you feel that self-love, the more that you'll attract it from someone else. That's what I'm going to start trying. I do think that's valid advice. And some people will be like, how do you show yourself you love yourself? Maybe you journal to yourself and be like, I know you've struggled with these things. It's okay. I see you. I hear you. It's valid. But it's also okay to move on for those things and to know that it gets better. And maybe that is some feedback for me. I don't think I have always been in the healthiest of situations growing up. I think sometimes chaos and like depression and toxic situations, like somewhere along the line, I think those became comfortable for me. And I don't think that's right. It needs to be up to me to change that. Like just because that was the past doesn't mean that has to be the future. It's time for me to start taking a closer look and examining, okay, what are the small things that I can do to change, that feeling of feeling comfortable in dysfunction? That's what I'm going to work on. And I'm going to start making those slight changes probably over these next few months. And let's see what happens. I do think good things will come of that, just naturally by putting yourself in a different space with different people. I think it'll raise my vibration and I will start to feel better about dating. And let me just preface this. I'm not anti-love. I do believe in love. I do believe in connection. I do believe that there are good men out there and good guys out there. I do just think it's a matter of connecting with them and finding them and giving people a chance, the right people a chance. And I have to show up for myself as that person first. And I look forward to sort of doing that work on myself over the next few months. Whew. So, you guys, I hope that gave you some insight as to why I am the way I am, and also made you laugh a little bit, and also gave you some valid advice and steps towards finding the same things in your own life. I am really excited. Again, thank you for being here and watching. Like, share, subscribe, follow, all the things. I will see you next week.